Would you like to know how to self-publish a book without using Amazon KDP? That's right. You're looking for an alternative to Kindle Direct Publishing, then this video's for you. Stay tuned. Hey, I'm Dale. I'm a best-selling author as well as a self-publishing advocate. And if you'd like to learn how to publish books that sell, make sure that you subscribe and turn the bell notifications on so you don't miss a single video. I wanted to take a second to talk about Vexels.com, the sponsors here of this channel. They're a graphic design platform perfect for content creators, hosting over 100,000 royalty-free graphics, designs, and illustrations for commercial purposes. I got their Pro Plan account and I am impressed with the quality and versatility to be used in a variety of publications and other business assets like on social media and whatnot. To get more details, visit our affiliate link at dalelinks.com/Vexels. Again, that's dalelinks.com/Vexels. The support is much appreciated and I would like to thank Vexels again. So let's talk about how to self-publish a book without using Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing. Yeah, we can see a fair share of royalties and profits through the Amazon platform, but there might be a variety of reasons of why you don't want to use Amazon KDP. So why would you go without Amazon KDP anyways? Well, there's a few reasons I can think of off the top of my head. One, you had a terminated KDP account and you're not able to go back over there. Two, you're anti-Amazon. Maybe you just see that they're taking over the world and you don't want to be any part of that, and that's okay, that's fine. Or third, you just want to be independent. You don't want to rely on any one source. I think I heard it once said that you don't want to build a property on rented land. So in this instance, we kind of think about being independent. So I'm going to give you some other avenues, and some of them you do have to rely on a platform, but if you stick around to the end, I'll tell you how you don't have to rely on any one platform. Let's start it out with the big four Amazon alternatives, and that includes Apple, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and Google Play. These four are considered competitors by Amazon. Why is that? It's because they're able to dominate a pretty good portion of the publication profits, worldwide. And to be clear, Amazon, sometimes when they do a price match for a region, so let's say that you've published your book on KDP and you've published it over on, say, Apple, and you mark it down to, say, free on Apple, well, Amazon is going to follow suit because they are going to price match that region. Now, if you try the same thing for anything that's going to be a smaller platform below those big four Amazon alternatives, then they're not going to price match. I've actually tried this and Amazon's like, nah, we reserve the right to actually price match. That's not on you. So let's look at these four alternatives, and now keep in mind, I've actually done a couple of videos about these, and there's going to be some links inside the description below, and a few other areas also as we kind of go forward. Know that I'm going to have some other videos I'm going to send you to rather than saying it here in the video. Let's start out with Apple, and the pros and cons of Apple is this. You actually get a pretty good royalty per sale, and that's at about 70%. Now, it used to be, I thought 80% at one point or another, but I had to double check before I shot this video, and no, it actually is just 70%, which that's not underwhelming, because if you're a trade published author, you're probably going to see way less than that. And they're actually considered the biggest competition to Amazon at this point, because there are some regions that Apple reaches that Amazon's not able to, and Apple actually dominates in that region. Now, the cons of Apple includes the fact that it's only for ebooks, and yeah, you can actually do audiobooks, but you're not able to distribute it through Apple Books. And again, we're kind of discussing more about the alternatives to Amazon KDP, which only offers ebook and print book. So we're going to kind of put audiobook off to the side for another video. And the other sticky little point is the fact that actually it's an iOS exclusive platform, meaning you actually have to have Apple products in order to utilize it. Now, there's going to probably be some nerds going to be like typing away going, oh, technically if you can get like a cloud shared service and you can actually use like a virtual Apple Mac, okay, that's great. You can use that. So there are some workarounds that you're able to upload to Apple Books. All that to say this is you need to actually have a Mac-based program in order to utilize that platform. What about Barnes & Noble? Now, Barnes & Noble is not too bad. They actually have a pretty good ebook royalty at 65%, and their print books are at 55%. But the cons are they're limited in distribution. In fact, they primarily just cover US only. Now, if that's your point, you want to get on over into US, that's all you're wanting to shoot for, then that's fantastic. The other part, they're a little fickle on the print process. I talked about it in an unboxing video once, and once you get it right, the books look stellar. They're fantastic. But again, I still kind of go back to the limited distribution, and I really want to see my books on more avenues and to more regions. So if you're okay with US only, then Barnes & Noble might be for you. Now there's Kobo is the next one, and the big pros about Kobo is they have a very wide reach. In fact, it's actually owned by the company Rakuten, and Rakuten's going up and they're acquiring all of these different assets and businesses. And one of the relationships they acquired was one with Walmart. So this means that when you are able to go through Kobo, you have the opportunity to get into a very large retailer in Walmart. And their ebooks have a stellar royalty rate at 70%. Not freaking bad. But here's the cons of using Kobo. You get no print option yet. But judging by the history of Rakuten, I have a feeling they're probably going to work on it next, because they do have the ebook feature and they have the audiobook feature. But I have a feeling they're going to eventually pivot to print. Now, this is all speculation on my behalf. And if you don't price within their sweet spot or their price range, you don't get the 70%. They actually drop you down to 45%. But if you compare that to KDP, where they drop down to 35%, you get 10% more. So that's not too bad. And then there's Google Play. Now, I've talked about Google Play numerous times. They've actually paid me pretty well over the years. Pretty happy about Google Play. The pros include the fact that you have indexable content. Anytime that you have some type of sampled content like a See Inside, that's actually indexed, which will make you more searchable through the Google engines. And just this year, they'd actually rolled out a 70% royalty rate in select regions. This is a great time for me to transition into the cons, because again, much like the previous options I'd mentioned, if you're not putting inside a specific price range, they will not honor that 70%. It actually drops down to roughly 52%, which isn't terrible again. And Google Play doesn't have any print options. I don't see them doing it at this point. It might be just a little bit too much of a risk for them to take on. So I'm sure if you've got any kind of speculations, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. And also, the other real pain in the rear end is they actually have an application process. It used to be that if you had a pulse, that's it, you're in. You're part of the Google Play books. But now you kind of go through this arduous process of putting an application in. Now, I've heard some people have gotten in right away, and there's some people that never hear back from Google Play books for whatever reason. Not really sure. Okay, so let's just say, for instance, that you're like, look, man, those are a few avenues, and I want to get more. There's also what I call aggregate publishing. Now, here's how aggregate publishing works: is you upload it to one platform that represents you and sends out your work to various avenues. Now, this can be anywhere from like half a dozen to a dozen, or even like dozens of different platforms. And some of the bigger aggregate publishers I've spoken about include Ingram Spark, Lulu, Smashwords, Draft2Digital, Publish Drive, and the list goes on. Now, the pros when it comes to actually using aggregate publishing, I've heard some people that kind of poo-poo all over the whole process of using aggregate publishing, but what they're forgetting is it really helps cut down the time that it's going to be required to sending it out to all these different platforms. Yeah, you can go up there. Now, let's just say, for instance, I need to change my ebook. Like I found like an error in it, and I want to upload it. Well, I'm going to have to upload it to all those different platforms, and that's going to eat up time. Not to mention, you actually have just one dashboard. Rather than multiple dashboards, you're going to have to log in every single time that you're wanting to check out your sales reports or update any kind of metadata. It can be quite time consuming if you're trying to upload to each one of these platforms individually. And the other pro is the fact that you get one tax form. That's right. So if you're utilizing all the big four Amazon alternatives and some other smaller platforms, you're going to have to collect all of those tax forms and file that every year, and that is not fun. Now, the biggest cons I can foresee is, of course, since they're going to be sending out your work to all these different platforms, they typically collect a certain percentage, otherwise known as revenue share. So for instance, a platform like PublishDrive used to do revenue share at one point or another, and they actually only took about 20% of all revenue that was brought in from all the different platforms in exchange, for just their time in representing you. Now, they actually switched more recently to a non-revenue share model, and that means actually you ended up paying a subscription for the certain number of books that you upload to their platform and they send out for you, and you collect 100% of the profits. Now, there's definitely some pros and cons when it comes to that in PublishDrive. Drafted Digital is a different case, Smashwords is different, Ingram Spark, Lulu, and so on and so forth. And here's the real sticky part. If you go through an aggregate publisher, you waive the right for advertising natively on each one of the platforms. So say, for instance, you want to publish to Apple and you do it by way of, say, Drafted Digital, you are no longer able to actually advertise on Apple's platform. Now, if you upload directly to Apple, then you have that opportunity. But going through an aggregate publisher, you do not. Now, there's one exception to the rule, and that would be if you're publishing through PublishDrive to Amazon, then you can actually use Amazon advertising. But that's really nothing to do because we're not wanting to go over to Amazon KDP. That's what this video is about. The next place to self-publish a book without using Amazon KDP would be doing it yourself. Now, the next couple of options I'm going to be talking about is going to be about DIY. And the very first one's going to be crowdfunded. You've heard of crowdfunding, and this includes places like Kickstarter or any kind of off-brands of something like a Kickstarter. And what it does is you actually reach out to an audience that is willing and able to support you through this process. So just say that you have a social media following already, or you have enough friends and family or networking professionals that are going to really get behind you, then using something like a Kickstarter platform to crowdfund your project might be the way to go. So there are some pros and cons to this. Now, the very first thing is the pros is it's proof of concept. So if people are willing to pay up front to fund your project, then you really don't need to sweat pulling out of your own pocket to pay for all this, only to discover that you've got a garage full of books that no one's willing to buy. And here's the nice thing is there's less risk for you, and it empowers your audience. And they're going to feel a little bit more invested in the product that you're going to be putting out. So if I, for instance, put $20 down to your upcoming book, I'm going to be very much interested in getting that book in my hands, and especially based on whatever the rewards you're going to be offering through this crowdfunding project, because that's sometimes how you're able to entice people to part ways with their hard-earned money, is you give some type of reward, like, we're going to give you a special thanks in the back of the book if you give $20 to this project. I'll give you a shout out on YouTube for $50, and you'll also get the special thanks in the back of the book. Now, the cons include that there is going to be a lot more work involved. You're going to have to get out there. You're going to have to build awareness about this crowdfunding project. It's going to take some time and some energy and really, quite frankly, just research and understanding your audience and make sure that they're on board with you. I actually interviewed somebody about a couple years ago. Her name is Naomi VanDoren, and Naomi actually has not published on Amazon. Now, she had her artwork featured on Amazon by way of somebody else's publication, but it was not her book. She actually has already released a number of books by way of Kickstarter and run numerous successful campaigns for that, and big kudos to her. And if you're going to DIY, you might as well go ahead and do it through your website. Of course, you're going to need to do site-fulfilled transactions when it comes to something like this. And ultimately, I think every self-published author needs to be aiming to building a website presence and drawing in the audience to their website to where they actually can fulfill orders there. So you can actually fulfill the orders there, and I would recommend something like, say, PayPal for order fulfillment, or Stripe. It's one of my preferred avenues. And then when it actually comes to the order fulfillment, you can either do it yourself, but that can be very time consuming, especially if you start to have a very large audience and get a ton of traffic. So you're going to want to look into things like a Shopify program or any kind of program that's like that has like a shopping cart that will fulfill the print orders or the ebook orders. One jumps off the top of my head. It's actually called Lulu Express. It's actually put out by lulu.com. It integrates with Shopify, and they really don't take any of the royalties from you. It's just they fulfill through print runs. So when somebody orders your book, all they're going to charge is just the print fees. You don't have to worry about a thing. Or you can just order the print books in advance. Maybe you go ahead and saddle the risk, or even for your Kickstarter campaign, you raise enough revenue that you can actually have a back stock on hand that you can fulfill it through your website outside of the Kickstarter program. And then there's crowd drive delivery for your ebooks. Now here's what I would recommend is you're going to get your ebooks and you're going to format them in 3 different ways. And that would be, of course, through EPUB, MOBI, and PDF. Why do we want 3? Because then it's going to be readable across most any devices. PDF is going to be readable about anywhere. You got EPUB, which is pretty much like, the Apple readers and various ones like that. And then MOBI is actually for Kindle. And you're going to insert into the 3 of these. You're going to put it maybe like as a README file that has instructions and tells people exactly how they can read your ebooks. Zip it all together and put it in a cloud drive. Now, if you're feeling kind of leery about putting it in a cloud drive-based system without any kind of security, you can always look into a program like BookFunnels. I know BookFunnels has pretty modest pricing per month structure that they actually will fulfill the orders for you, and you don't need to worry about someone pirating your content just by simply purchasing it from your cloud drive. They go ahead and grab that cloud drive link and they send it out to everybody. Next thing you know, you have thousands of copies out there with your name on it and no one's paid a dime for it. But still, after I've offered all these different options when it comes to actually self-publishing a book without Amazon KDP, I think we need to revisit the conversation. Is KDP still worth it? In fact, I talk about that in my most popular video. You're gonna go on down below right here. I'm gonna visit you on over there. Until later, I'll see you there.